Good evening. Welcome to Community and Technology, where we connect the global community with news, information, and resources that we hope will help improve your life. I'm Stu Reed, and I'm here with a very special guest today, Will Owen, who's the Communications Director for STOP. Longtime listeners may have heard of STOP and maybe even heard Will previously on our show. But STOP is a surveillance technology oversight project, 501c3 nonprofit advocacy organization, and legal services provider. And Will has some really interesting updates and news about what's going on with STOP. And welcome to the show, Will.
Great. Thank you so much for having me back on, Stu. We do have quite a bit going on at Stop right now, so
Mhm.
thrilled to discuss.
Okay. I read with interest, and just recently, just a couple of days ago, you guys put out a press release about a lawsuit that you brought against Amazon. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So really from Ring by neighbors to video monitoring its delivery drivers, we've seen Amazon emerge as kind of the face of dystopian surveillance.
Hmm.
And Stop, alongside Brooklyn resident Alfredo Rodriguez Perez, Peter Romer Friedman Law PLLC, and Pollock Cohen LLP filed a proposed class action lawsuit claiming that Amazon has illegally failed to notify customers that its Amazon Go stores in New York City collect biometric data from New York customers.
Mm. Wow. How do they do that? Well, how do they even collect it? How does that happen?
So Amazon Go stores use what's called Just Walk Out surveillance technology that allows customers to use palm print scanning technology
Hmm.
as they leave the store. But this technology also it tracks customers' movements and purchases in a store. There are cameras throughout the store that constantly watch customers and even take the measurements of their bodies, specifically their limbs. Um, and this is technology that's computer vision technology.
Hmm.
So Stop is alongside our co-counsel fighting back against Amazon's failure to disclose the extent of the surveillance in Amazon Go stores.
Wow. So is this happening just in New York, or is it a lot larger problem with Amazon?
That's a good question. I mean, New York has really been in a moment where it's where a lot of the public surveillance in stores and venues, perhaps most infamously Madison Square Garden, have been highly critiqued for their use of biometric surveillance. So I can't say for sure that anything is just a New York issue. But what is unique about New York is that since 2021, we have had a biometric notice law in place that
Mhm.
requires businesses such as Amazon and their Amazon Go stores to post signs warning customers when biometric information is being collected.
Mhm. And Amazon is not currently doing that now in New York?
So, the complaint alleges that from January 2022 through March 13th of this year, 2023, Amazon failed to post any signs stating that their Amazon Go stores collect biometric data. And this included for over a month after Mr. Perez told Amazon that it was violating New York City law by failing to do so. Um, Amazon did just recently take the additional step of posting signs that state that their Amazon Go stores only collect biometric data from those customers who opt into the company's optional palm print scanner program. But as the plaintiffs claim in our lawsuit, this disclosure, the signage is very insufficient because Amazon really collects information, biometric data on all customers, even those who refuse to opt into the palm scanner.
Hmm.
So that biometric data can include, the shape and size of each customer's body, but like these signs that they've added do not include, any information on this other biometric data that's being tracked.
Hmm. I know you've been on the show before, Will, and you've talked about it, but for folks who maybe are not familiar, tell us a little bit more about this biometric stuff and how is it that a camera can record a person moving and walking and somehow get some imprints and some data that's unique to that person. How does that work?
So, I mean, the technology, really varies in how it works. With, the palm print scanners, they collect, the customer's unique palm print.
Hmm.
Um, and then, with recording, the computer vision software is able to capture this biometric data as customers, move throughout a store. And we don't always know, how this data is stored and what it might be used for.
Hmm. Yeah, I've heard and read from others that just for instance, the way that people walk, their gait, that the way that their body moves is unique. Even though we both we got 2 feet and we ambulate the same, but still, just all the nuance of how we move and walk is unique to each person, and somehow this computer programming that you're talking about is able to capture that and put it in a database, I guess. I mean, I don't know what they're doing with that data. The stop know what they do with the data?
We, are hoping to, part of STOP's mission is gaining greater transparency on use of data, especially,
Mhm.
government use and police use of surveillance data. So that's, really what we are fighting for. I should clarify that, we do not know that Amazon is using any sort of gait recognition technology that is a form of biometric surveillance.
Hmm.
But that's not included in this lawsuit, and we don't have any claim over that. It's more the measurements of bodies.
What
Yeah.
what do you mean by measurement of bodies? What is that? I'm
So
6'2" and slim or a little overweight. What is that?
Yeah, so we know that specifically kind of the measurements of people's limbs in
Hmm.
stores is something that has been tracked,
Hmm.
and kind of the shape of people's bodies. So just, all of these forms of surveillance used
Hmm.
to track customers.
Wow, that's fascinating stuff. Now, we all know Amazon is a behemoth. I mean, you guys got that's pretty nervy for a small nonprofit to take on such a giant. I mean, tell us about just kind of the politics about that. Was it hard to make that decision to go after them with your legal team?
Well, it's not hard because, part of our mission in this lawsuit is to, demonstrate that, no company, no matter how much of a behemoth, is um, too big to brazenly disregard the law as Amazon has done. Um, so, we're hoping that this lawsuit sends a wider message that, big tech, bigger companies cannot simply take our data without our consent, surveil customers.
Hmm. You mentioned big tech and other companies. There's a broader problem, is it not, with surveilling commercial and public spaces where establishment businesses and I guess maybe in some cases police authorities as well are doing surveillance in public spaces and commercial spaces where we would think maybe we'd have some privacy, but maybe we don't. What's going on with that, Will?
Well, I mean, the NYPD certainly uses facial recognition and other biometric surveillance throughout the city in public spaces. And then, businesses, I earlier mentioned, MSG Entertainment, use biometric surveillance within their venues that are public spaces.
Mhm.
So we're seeing this, on the one hand, police and government surveillance through biometric data, and then also, more private companies using it. There's also been controversy recently around the Fairway supermarket on the Upper West Side using facial recognition. And Mayor Adams has encouraged stores to use facial recognition to ostensibly combat uh, crime.
Wow, I hadn't heard that one before. But let me just back up for a moment because I know I think you were on the show some months back when the MSG issue first came into at least public view, and I know that there was some folks were denied entrance. One woman in particular who was an attorney with a law firm that had some action against MSG, even though she wasn't involved with the action, her firm was, and she was denied entrance to the venue. And I think I read that there was some legislation that New York City was proposing that would somehow address that issue. Has anything happened with that, and with the MSG case in particular?
Well, with the MSG case, I know that there's still, a lot of back and forth going on, and that, MSG as a corporation has really doubled down on its use of facial recognition.
Mhm.
And I know that the company is currently suing the New York State Liquor Authority because they're kind of because the agency is currently looking to revoke MSG Entertainment's liquor licenses. So there's still, a lot of tension bubbling up around, the use of facial recognition by MSG and other big corporations. And Stop has been, really urging state lawmakers to institute a ban on facial recognition in public venues.
Mhm. Now, the state liquor license or the state liquor authority in this particular case is looking to revoke the license because of the use of facial recognition, which I think they're claiming is discriminatory. Is that right?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
correct.
Wow. So tell us a little bit about the Fairway issue and Mayor Adams. It's the first I've heard of that.
So the fairway issue is just, recent disclosures that they have been using facial recognition. Mayor Adams has spoken, more broadly about, stores using biometric surveillance to, combat crime and shoplifting. And I think we've seen, just in recent months and over the past year, the way in which a lot of that kind of fear mongering around crime
Mhm.
has been used to promote surveillance technologies in the city that really, might be better at capturing, like videotaping a crime and then showing it on the news, but do little to actually prevent crime from
Mhm.
occurring.
Mhm.
So I think another instance where we've really seen this discourse is the subway and MTA and Mayor Adams and Governor Hochul's insistence on increasing surveillance of the subway.
Hmm. Explain to me, well, what is the thinking behind the biometric and facial recognition use of the technology? One thing is capturing an event. I understand what that is, but how does the the recognition technology play into at least theoretically crime prevention? Are they saying they have a database that this particular person is a criminal, and now as a past criminal history, and now he's in this store. I mean, what's the rationale on that? I don't quite get it.
It's theoretically to, identify someone who has supposedly committed a crime, but I mean, we've just seen time and time again that the technology does not work. It's inaccurate.
Mm-hmm.
It's led to false arrests in,
Mm-hmm.
due to these misidentifications. And the misidentifications really disproportionately impact people of color, especially Black women,
Mm-hmm.
women of color being 100 times more likely to be misidentified by facial recognition than white
Wow,
men.
100 times.
Yeah.
Wow, that's astounding. That's astounding. So, I mean, I'm presuming I've talked to some of my tech buddies. I'm presuming that that has something to do with the fact that white men kind of wrote the algorithms and the software was designed by white guys who kind of focused on white skin and white models. Is that the rationale? I mean, how did that happen that Black women are misidentified 100 times more than white guys? What's that about?
No, exactly. Like, in building these technologies, racial biases were baked into, their creation.
Hmm.
Tech, like facial recognition, is not, you know, magically more objective than people themselves. So you're absolutely right that just in terms of who built the technology, how it was built, and the biases baked
Hmm.
into them, and how it's deployed too.
Yeah. Yeah, I even wonder, I mean, what to me it seems like it's not just, if I have previously committed a crime, I served my time or whatever, but now I'm in the database as have a previous infraction, and now the facial recognition technology is somehow going to flag me, and I'm somehow going to be discriminated against, watched, maybe even pulled over, maybe even banned from coming in because of some prior experience action that may have already been adjudicated and dismissed and dealt with. I mean, so I don't even understand the rationale. Even if the recognition technology worked properly, which clearly, as you tell us, Will, it doesn't. But even if it did, I don't see how that helps with crime prevention in any real way. I think it's back to your statement about fear mongering and it sounds like more like a political kind of move than an actual law enforcement action.
Yeah, it's really, about surveillance solutionism, like having some way to say that, we are addressing crime, when in reality it does nothing to prevent crime. It just
Mhm.
leads to biased policing and over policing of communities of color in New York City.
Mhm. Well, how does that? Why do you think? I mean, this may be a little bit outside of your expertise, but just why are communities of color over policed and over surveilled? I mean, is that just some more built-in bias of the law enforcement? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, the built-in biases of law enforcement at large, um, where technologies are deployed, how they're deployed, the biases within the technologies, like, what I mentioned earlier in terms of the inaccuracy in
Hmm.
identifying, people of color, um, and just, really reflecting, long legacies of surveillance of, civil rights activists, current, surveillance of Black Lives Matter activists, and use of, facial recognition and other technology by the NYPD against the Black Lives Matter protests during 2020. Um, and, I think going to when we think about public spaces and venues, the NYPD um, began, what a so-called, rap intel unit during the 1990s, surveilling rap concerts, and that unit, it's now referred to euphemistically as the Enterprise Operations Unit. But it exists to this day, surveilling Black artists, concert goers, and Stop recently condemned the NYPD's filming of concert goers leaving a Drake show at the Apollo, as part of this legacy of surveillance of communities of color, and including in public venues, concert venues.
So the Drake concert at the Apollo, the NYPD just decided they were going to record the concert goers just because something might happen, or they thought they might capture something. Did they have any rationale?
So they recorded concert goers leaving the show, and then they ended up using it for some kind of a social media, self-congratulatory PSA, stating, showing how their, crowd control worked throughout the concert. It was kind of like a pat on the back for themselves, for their social media. But Stop has demanded to know, what happened with the raw footage of the filming. Why, were there any other uses of the film? And it just really raised red flags for us and a lot of activists around the city that they would choose this particular venue, a historic venue of Black performance in Harlem, to film, especially given the legacy of stuff like the rap intel unit.
And I'd imagine that it was a stealth recording. It wasn't like folks knew they were being recording,
folks did not consent to being recorded. It wasn't anything agreed upon, but they did. It wasn't stealth as they were leaving, and it was captured by concert goers.
Okay, we're going to take a brief break. We're talking with Will Owens, Communications Director for STOP, the Surveillance Technology Oversight Project. A lot going on, and one of the things I want to talk about when we come back, Will, is the Banning Big Brother initiative that you guys have going. It sounds really interesting. So stay tuned. This is Community and Technology on WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem. We'll be right back after a brief musical break.
Your lips were like a red and ruby chalice, warmer than the summer night. The clouds were like an alabaster palace, rising to a snowy each star its own aurora borealis. Suddenly you held me tight. I could see the midnight sun. I can't explain the silver rain that found me, or was that a moonlight veil? The music of the universe or was that a nightingale? And then your arms miraculously found me. Suddenly the sky turned pale. I could see the midnight sun. Was there such a night? It's a thrill I still don't quite believe. But after you were gone, there was still some stardust on my sleeve. The flame of it may dwindle to an ember, and the stars forget to shine, and we may see the meadow in December. I see white and crystalline, but oh, my darling, always I'll remember when your lips were close to mine, and we saw the midnight sun. It's a thrill I still don't quite believe. But after you were gone, there was still some stardust on my sleeve. It may dwindle to an ember, and the stars forget to shine, and we may see the meadow in December. I see white and crystalline. Always I'll remember when your lips were close to mine, and we saw the midnight sun, and we saw the midnight sun, and we saw the midnight sun.
Okay, we're back. It's Community and Technology, Stu Reed, and we're speaking with Will Owen, Communications Director for STOP, the Surveillance Technology Oversight Project. Will, one of the things that I read that you guys just initiated just recently is something called Banning Big Brother, New York Surveillance Sanctuary State Blueprint. What's that all about?
Yeah, so in January, STOP hosted a press conference up in Albany, joined by elected officials, fellow civil rights organizations, to launch a 10 bill anti-surveillance legislative campaign to really make New York a model for the rest of the country in anti-surveillance and make our state a surveillance sanctuary state.
Mhm. So, one of the things I read, it says this is the first in the nation bill that bans geofence warrants and fake police social media profiles. I know we've talked in the past about what that stuff is, but maybe for new listeners, you can explain. What's a geofence warrant?
Yeah, absolutely. So a geofence warrant is when police can, approach Google or other tech companies through a single court order, demanding the location data of users' devices, like in a very large area at a specific time. So it really allows police to surveil groups through a dragnet. And of course, surveilling such a large number of people at once, it can be, tens of thousands of devices. So many people who have nothing to do with whatever crime is, being investigated get wrapped up into the dragnet and surveilled.
Mm-hmm. So, for instance, if there were a demonstration or march, and maybe there, 5,000-10,000 people there, and there's one incident where something happens, the police can go get a warrant and then go to somebody like Google and get the phone numbers or MAC addresses, IDs from all of the people that were in that given area at a given time. Is that how that works?
Yeah, exactly. And protests, as you said, are one of the settings, where we're highly concerned by the use of geofence warrants and the way in which they can stifle dissent and undermine First Amendment free speech rights.
Mhm. So that there's no other jurisdiction that you know of in the country that bans geofence warrants. That just something that's done.
No, not that I know of. I'd have to do a little more research, but it would be, I believe, the first in the nation ban on geofence warrants. I know that some other states have been also starting to push for geofence warrant bans, but New York's and this bill would be the first in the country.
Wow, that's impressive. And now, fake police social media profiles. What is that, and how are they using those?
So, that's when police are able to, create accounts, fake social media accounts and, surveil people, surveil, online spaces, and also, the use of technology where they can create kind of a number of different accounts in a more automated way to surveil people through social media.
So you have cops pretending to be someone that they aren't, and they're going on social media and I don't know, they're provoking conversation or provoking people to talk about certain issues and things is in an effort to collect data. Is that what's going on?
Yeah, having those conversations, monitoring activists and any sort of activist space online, and deceiving people, often children, into exposing their private content to police.
Wow. So in reading one your press release about this, I'm reading from someone from the Legal Aid Digital Forensic Unit, Attorney Diane Ackerman, and she's talking about unregulated municipal DNA indices. And that she's quoted as saying, these digital and DNA dragnets lead to terrifying and life-altering consequences for over-policed communities, including communities of color and activists who have long disproportionately shouldered the harmful effects of surveillance. We talked a little bit about the surveillance of communities of color. We know that's been going on for decades, if not centuries. But what is unregulated municipal DNA indices? What is that?
Yes, so our bill in the Banning Big Brother package requires police to stop using any DNA database other than New York's official DNA index. New York City and other localities maintain illegal DNA databases that are ripe for abuse that are outside of that official New York DNA index. And these databases allow New York or allow NYPD police to deceive New Yorkers, including young children, into exposing their DNA and potentially keeping it in one of these illegal databases.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm reading again from your press release. Says New York City is using an unlawful and unauthorized DNA index that illegally stores the private genetic information of nearly 33,000 New Yorkers, including children. And this is State Senator Brad Holliman, and he calls it interestingly genetic stop and frisk, which is wow, that's a new 21st century application of a policing technique that has long happened in communities of color, and was adjudicated here in New York City, and the police were forced to stop it, physical stop and frisk. But now it's going to a whole nother level of genetic stop and frisk on a digital level. Can you just kind of expand a little bit about what that is, how that works?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's, the police's use of these rogue DNA databases where they can track New Yorkers, based on DNA. And, an example of something that, could happen is if you're at a protest, and like an officer were to offer you something to drink, they could use the DNA captured from the cup that you had just used, and add it to a database. So it is just this other method of tracking New Yorkers, surveilling, and as you said, very much a digitized form of stop and frisk that works alongside other versions of stop and frisk we see now, like facial recognition, the gang database, the NYPD houses. So yeah, really just yet another form of surveilling primarily communities of color.
Wow, genetic stop and frisk, that's a heck of a concept. So tell us a little bit more about the Big Brother Act. Is that a state level initiative or a city initiative, or what are you trying to, where is that being filed?
Yeah, so banning Big Brother is a New York State legislative campaign. So we have been working with lawmakers in Albany to push towards having New York being statewide an example of anti-surveillance. Certainly these bills would impact the city as well, but we're chiefly focused on the state legislature.
And that's a first in the nation initiative, as you guys understand. Do you talk to folks across the country that have relationships with other nonprofits or advocacy groups outside of New York around these surveillance issues?
Yeah, Stop definitely, is always seeking to uplift, the work of other organizations around the country doing, anti-surveillance advocacy.
Mhm.
And I think New York has a lot to learn from other cities around the country that are further ahead in terms of, banning facial recognition, for example. So we definitely, work closely with other organizations. We're part of the Nationwide Electronic Frontier Foundation, um, and we're always eager to learn from and support other groups.
Mhm. Are there any other initiatives going on in other parts of the country that you might want to share with our audience that are significant?
Um, that I would have to get back to you on. I mean,
Mhm.
there's certainly been a lot of movement in other cities to ban facial recognition. I know that there's been a significant advocacy in New Orleans, for example. Chicago has had quite a bit of advocacy against shot spotter, gunshot detection technology,
Mhm.
um, and quite a few other initiatives in terms of cities that have already banned facial recognition. That would include cities like Boston, Somerville, Massachusetts, San Francisco, and several other jurisdictions around the country.
Mhm. Oh,
Oakland.
mhm. Okay, so we've got the facial recognition, we've got the genetic capturing of genetic data, genetic stop and frisk. We've got the biometric surveillance. What other things are going on in New York that you guys are looking at? Any other issues or any other things that you want to talk about or bring to the attention of our audience?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'll just add that biometrics ban that you mentioned, is seeking to prohibit government use of biometric surveillance, and, highlighting facial recognition, and its biases. Other, bans we are seeking to enact are the cell site simulator ban,
What's that
which would
again? Say that again, Will.
cell site simulator ban.
What is that?
Um, so they're also called stingrays, but they would prohibit police use of cell site stimulators that allow police to track large numbers of phones at protests and other sensitive sites. Like
Mm,
they function kind of mimicking cell site, like cell phone towers,
hmm
and allow police to gain access to cell phone data.
uh,
Um, and similarly raising a lot of concerns around tracking at protests and other ways to stifle dissent. Um, we are also working with organizations like the New York Immigration Coalition on the New York for All Act, which would prohibit New York's state and local government agencies from colluding with ICE and disclosing data and diverting resources to any further federal immigration enforcement. That's a bill um, where we're seeking to make New York, a true sanctuary state as it, professes to be, um, and also seeking to ban police use of drones, except for in search and rescue operations,
mm,
among a number of other bills.
hmm Wow, a lot going on. Well, we're speaking with Will Owen, the Communication Director for STOP, the Surveillance Technology Oversight Project. Is there anything we haven't touched on, Will, that is of particular interest to you, or that you think our audience might needs to be aware of that we haven't discussed?
Um, I think just like reiterating that the Amazon lawsuit is about so much more than just Amazon itself as a company. It's about ensuring that New Yorkers have some sort of say and over how their data is used, and ensuring that the biggest corporations in the world follow the law and follow rules of transparency in use of biometric surveillance.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you, Will. We've been speaking with Will Owen, Communications Director for Stop the Surveillance Technology Oversight Project, and very important work that you guys are doing. Will, congratulations to you and your organization for all of the fine advocacy work that you do.
Thank you so much, and I'm thrilled to be back on the show and share what we've been up to.
Absolutely. So let's stay in touch, and please come back when you have any updates that might impact our community here in New York.
Okay.
Thanks again.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Stu.
Okay. Thanks, Will. This has been Community and Technology on WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem. Stay tuned every Wednesday, 5 p.m. Just might learn something. Good night.